Hello there. Welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to tell you about a thriller movie called The Girl in the Basement. The story starts with our heroine Sarah and her father Don taking Mary to the hospital. Mary is having trouble breathing. When Mary stops breathing, Sarah panics, and she tells Don to drive the car faster. When they reach the hospital, Don tells Sarah not to talk. The paramedics rush to Mary's aid, giving her oxygen and trying to save her life. But the monitor shows nothing but a flat heart line. Now let's go back 20 years. Sarah and her sister Emmy are having dinner with their parents, Don and Irani. The table is tense when her father refuses to let Sarah go to the party. That night, Sarah sneaks away with her boyfriend Chris. Her parents see that her room is empty, and her father mentions it as a problem. At the party, Sarah has fun dancing with Chris, who then sings her a song he wrote for her. They express their love for each other and kiss. Sarah comes home in the morning. Don has been waiting for her all night, and they argue. Sarah says that she will leave home when she turns 18. She shares with her mother and sister her plan to work and travel all over the country. Her father overhears this conversation and goes to the secret room behind the bookshelf in the basement. 3 months later, Sarah graduates, and while talking to her mother, she spends too much time in her father's room in the basement. Ian finds out that I've been spending time in the basement carrying boxes to the Don greenhouse when he's not home. Then he takes her to the secret room. He tells her that it is a bomb shelter built by the previous owner of the house and locks her in. Sarah screams in panic and calls for help. Unfortunately, no one can hear her because the shelter is soundproofed. Worried for her, her mother calls the police. On the 4th day, her father visits her and explains the conditions of captivity in a cold voice. Everything she uses from now on, even the fresh air she inhales, must first be earned. Don has intercourse with his daughter before leaving the police come to the house and tell them that their daughter is going on a long trip. Her mother says that Sarah is going on a long trip, especially before her birthday. He says he doesn't believe she'll leave without saying goodbye. Alone and scared, Sarah thinks about the night she spent with Chris as the days pass. Chris comes home. Don tells her that Sarah ran away with her childhood friend Steve after graduation. Sarah celebrates her 21st birthday on the 18th day of captivity in the basement. Her father brings her a cake and a red nightgown as a present. She asks him for a watch, but he tells her that she must first repay him. When Sarah disobeys him, he beats her. After almost a year in captivity, she turns out to be pregnant and gives birth alone to a baby girl named Mary. 4 years later, Sarah is pregnant again, and the Don is living a second life with Sarah and Mary, hidden from his wife Irani and his daughter Emmy. Irani, still worried about Sarah, wants to hire a private detective, but Don is adamantly opposed. As a gift for good behavior, Don brings a TV to the greenhouse and to the basement for Mary. Then Sarah has a second child, this time a son, whom she names Mike. One night, Sarah tells the story of her horrible life as a fairy tale to her children. Chris visits the house again and asks about Sarah. Realizing that Don had lied to her when Amy told her what happened, Chris mentions that he had always treated Sarah horribly. Amy fears that Don might have killed her, citing her personality and malignant motives. Sarah tells her children about imaginary mediums to make them forget the outside world. Meanwhile, Emmy and Irani demand accountability from Don, and a terrible fight breaks out. Irani is furious and says he will do everything in his power to find his daughter. During the fight, Don leaves his keys on the couch. Amy takes them and goes to the basement. She finds Don and gets the keys back. Amy blames him for causing Sarah's disappearance. As time passes, Sarah has another son, whom she names Thomas. She asks Don to take the third baby upstairs. He convinces her by explaining that there is no room for another baby in the basement, and he has no time to take care of her. The baby is left on the porch of the house to be found by rain. In a note that appears to be written by Sarah, that this is her baby and she wants it to be raised by Urek. According to the note, she and her boyfriend cannot take care of the baby. A help note from Sarah to her mother, but Don sees it before his mother does, and he beats Saray again. Over the years, children growing up in captivity develop an extraordinary imagination thanks to their mother's stories. Since Sarah was imprisoned in the basement, 14 has been years. Mary was a beautiful young girl, turns into Frost interest in her beauty, when Sarah showed her daughter begging him to let go because he doesn't want his daughter to be attacked. Mutual frost closes the ventilation, barely breathing. Mary expresses her fears of never meeting anyone and having friends. From Mary's speech, we realize that she did not know that Don was both her grandfather and her father. Thomas, now grown up, finds Irani crying in his mother's bedroom. Irani misses her daughter, and Tomasa is worried about what Sarah he talks about how amazing he is. Next, raindrops in the basement start seeping through the ceiling greenhouse up. He climbs up and sees that the roof is damp. Make a hole in the surface with a spoon and light. It sends a signal to the outside. A neighbor said that he realizes and tells Don that she's pregnant again, which beats the greenhouse in agony. During the beating sobbing, she loses her baby too. The child of the greenhouse is stillborn, and the underpants doll, he'll bury it in the courtyard, and then he'll go to Bodrum, beats Thomas, who's a strong athlete at the moment. When did Mary and Michael go out into the world? Don't blame the underpants when they ask if they're going out. Throws to greenhouse of the trap below, because he's the one who has to deal with the lives of his children, about the never-ending angry in the face of problems. Greenhouse yells and breaks, all the furniture exhausted, and Kreisel falls into his happiest moments, collapses, remembering children spread a blanket over it and surround it, clean it up, and apologize to him. Touched greenhouse them in captivity. The real story behind their lives, that they are old enough to hear the children are Don's aunts upstairs. They thought you were looking after Irani and Thomas. They must know Sarah tired of all the lies they tell them, everything their favorite, that the fairy tale is its own story. Gently asked the Don to tell me that both he and Don explains that he is their father, Mary, bitter. As soon as he found out the truth, he had a violent children will have asthma attacks, that they were at fault, considers Sarah told them that she loved them, that Don is the only one to blame. He tries to comfort her by saying 1 year later, don't tell Saray, when he insulted Don and Michael again. Income. Because Don was having problems at work, meals going to Bodrum are a households you start to pay more attention. Very much before the Frost becomes unemployed and faces foreclosure, faced with the frost that killed the family in Bodrum, tries to strangle. Car exhaust fumes connects it to the vent, but unknowingly, they had to take the lives of their brothers and sisters. Don's job, by rescuing Thomas, interrupted Don and his family in the garden. Mary, while having a fun barbecue, gets sick, has difficulty breathing. Don refuses to take Mary to the hospital. Greenhouse asks for your help about nothing. He promises not to say a word. Don Michael, who agrees to stay in Bodrum opening of the movie on the 20th anniversary of captivity. Will return on the stage of the last. For Sarah Mary, he's very worried, and the doctors that you actually saved his life. Relaxed. The nurse will take the patient's history. Mary was homeschooled when she asked, and treated only with natural remedies. It is said that the greenhouse slowly scans the hospital, looking for a way out, looking tired and lost, trying to escape. Who decided to send water to the Sarah medical forums, and first he gets rid of the Don. And then the Don tells him seconds before it reaches a greenhouse, reaches out to the nurse, and a police officer says he goes to talk to Don. And the police find Don. Sarah tells Mary about it. They are now safe and free, Michael. He is released, and the house is full of cops, Irani and Thomas Michael from Bodrum, when I saw how he was breathing when he came out. Don ruins everything from the police car, Mary on a beautiful summer day after the trails, Thomas and Michael playing on the lawn, Sarah, Irani, and Mary on the porch of her house. They must be watching them, Mary. Cheers realizes that he's coming. He came on his motorcycle with Sarah. They go for a walk together, that he didn't try harder to find because he believed his father's ridiculous story. 18. He apologizes and gives her a gift to go on a journey at the age, a pink one that they get when they plan motorcycle helmet. Finally, too late. They go on a motorcycle journey to be able to watch more videos like this. Be sure to subscribe and receive notifications. Make sure you turn it on. Make sure you watch it. Thank you, subscribe.